first up, I just adore her. We've got Dr. Amanda Kelly is joining us right now from Hawaii, and she is better known as the Behavior Babe. So Amanda, there she is. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Shannon. How are
It's,
you?
I'm great. It's so glad to have you here. And we so adore you, and it's thrilled to have you back on the show. Um, you are somebody, despite the way, your young appearance here, you've been working in the field of special education and autism now. Is it true for 20 years? Is that true?
Yes, it's true. I hate to give away my age.
That's great. Yeah, no, I would, it's that tough thing. You're an expert, but nobody would know. And you've got a very important presentation that's coming up. Our word of the day, we do jargon of the day, and our word today was BCBA, our alphabet land thing. But one of the things I talked about was that I said we would mention later on is continuing education. So tell us a little bit about what you're going to be talking about and why that feeds into that.
Sure. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And it's so nice to see your face.
and my bald head. Sorry about that.
Trying out new things. I'm actually doing my hair because I have time. And
but anyway, the great topic that you're going to be talking about, and I don't even tell them what it is and when it is.
Sure. So it's this Friday. It's at 6 p.m. on the East Coast time, which is 3 p.m. for the Californians, and it's noon. So I'll try to make it reasonable for me here in Hawaii. But I'm really excited because it's the first continuing education event that I'm hosting solely on my own. Usually I'm a guest, I'm invited, and I love collaborations. And so I decided, hey, let's make that a part of what I'm doing with the business, Dobie. And so it's the first event, and this was actually supposed to be an invited keynote address at the California Association for Behavior Analysis Conference. And that was my first cancellation, or actually it was my second, but the day of cancellation because of COVID.
Yeah.
They gave us a chance to host continuing education, which is what we need to maintain our certification as behavior analysts and assistant behavior analysts. And they did a thing called Coachella. So they had us give talks, and it was supposed to be our original talks. But we were right in the beginning of COVID, and I thought nobody wants to hear about the history of an online avatar. I was feeling a little bit down at the time, and I thought, let's talk about something relevant. And so we did. We shifted into the telehealth and ethics topic. And then now that we are all finding our groove a bit more, I thought now might be the time to storytell a little bit, and people might want to kind of escape for a little while down memory lane. And interestingly enough, I'm going to talk about the last 10 years now of Behavior Babe, but I also wanted to talk about the next, and not just for Behavior Babe, because really her goal was to make sure people are still talking about behavior analysis, to make sure that we have children and adults accessing services. And I tried to do that in a way I thought was fun. So anyone who's interested in hearing the story, the journey, and also I think taking some tips away for maybe how to become an effective advocate or disseminator at whatever level that you need to in your life, I hope you share some tips as well.
And so Behavior Babe, it's like I'm going to say alter ego, but it's you, but it's this character that you sort of created to be able to disseminate information to people, and for people to be able to consume it. People like me, for instance, that were moms that were like up a tree and didn't know, I didn't go to college for this. I've lost your sound a little bit, Amanda. I don't know what happened.
I just mouthed right.
Okay. So the title of the topic is A Decade of Dissemination, a Flashback, and a Fast Forward. And so if there are people who are out there who are BCBAs, they can get continuing education units for this. But parents can, and people off the street can tune in to watch this, yes?
Absolutely. So the goal is to make it above and beyond our task list. So more than what a BCBA needs to sit for the exam. To become a BCBA, we always have to make sure we're stimulating our brains. but I try to do it in a way that's digestible and that other people can receive it. That's the whole goal of Behavior Babe. So yeah, parents, teachers, often we have a lot of teachers as well as other family members. So some extended family, they usually kind of join me in certain talks and ask questions. I love that. So yes, it's the event is only $15. We try to make it also really reasonable. We actually did a $10 for the first 50, but I think we might be over that right now. But yeah, we would love that piece of it because my journey and the journey of our field, it involves parents, it involves teachers, it involves behavior analysts. We are not operating on our own in a vacuum.
Absolutely. And so where they need to go to register?
Okay, so if you're interested, you can just the website is dobe-aba.com, and you just click on webinars. And it's right now the only webinar because it's our first. So that stands for DOBE, Distinguished Organization of Behavior Enterprises, but it's dobe-aba.com.
And so since we're talking about Dobie, tell us a little bit, because you were on the show before to talk about it, but if people weren't here, tell them what Dobie is and what you're trying to do.
So that's part of the evolution of what I've done as a practitioner. I started working in home with a child who was 2 years old in West Virginia back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Then I went on and got my degrees, and then once I kept going, I thought so much to know, so much to share people. And so I definitely want to make sure I'm doing all of that. The piece of it with Dobie was how do we help other organizations? So how can I share what I've learned? Last year in 2019, all 50 states now cover autism insurance or ABA, OT, PT, speech services for individuals with autism. That lends itself to a whole new host of challenges or opportunities for businesses and organizations. And we start to see the small mom and pops who definitely have their hearts in it, fizzling out and not being able to compete with larger organizations sometimes. And I think we need both. I think we need all of that. We need to have a good, strong system. And so what we do with Dobie is we try to support typically smaller organizations, but larger as well with, do you need help? Do you need billing, credentialing? We don't do that, but we partner with people who do. And our goal is to make it more affordable, to give them a louder voice. If they're a small company, they might only have 10 members or 10 accounts with a company. But if we have 10 of those companies, we now have 100 accounts and can get people help quicker. So it's also that, as well as some clinical guidance and support. We do site visits, not during COVID. So we've pivoted, which is what we always have to be doing. Certainly I would say autism parents, but behavior analysts too.
Absolutely. We're that is the word right now, pivot, right? Tammy is saying hello, and Avani has written in and said everyone's journey is so important, and it's so true. And I think, I remember the day that my son was diagnosed, and the developmental pediatrician, who had no bedside manner whatsoever, the one positive thing that she said to me, and it was hard to take it at the time. She said, "Be grateful that your son has been diagnosed today," because she had been working in the field for 50 years. In fact, it was her first day of retirement. She diagnosed him in her first day of retirement. And she said, "We've learned more about autism in the last 5 years than we have learned in the entire 50 years of my practice before this." And that was almost 15 years ago. And I always think about that, about how much I know for sure, how much more we know than we knew on that day, and how much things have changed in the last 10 years, Dr. Kelly. And I love watching that you're keeping pace with it, and so much changed with insurance, and you're providing a really important service to make sure that ABA providers can keep up with those changes and stay staffed. And I think it's a very hard time for small ABA providers, and a lot of them have gone out of business, and that's a shame, because we're on a crusade, and we need as many people as possible to help as many people as possible. So I appreciate what you're doing. And again, so we can go to -aba.com. Lots of information that we can get there, but also it's webinar that we want to click on, correct?
Yes,
And so, go ahead.
we are recording the webinar, so if anybody can't meet that time, if you register, you do get access to it for an entire week after the recording. So I don't want anyone to fear if they're just not available. I know we're juggling our families and our work and our lives from home right now, most of us.
And I gotta say, on my Facebook post this morning, it came up 8 years ago that I was at an ABAI conference, and I think it was the first time that I met you, like 8 years ago today. So that's very interesting anniversary. But I went to ABAI, it was in Seattle, and I was a mom with a one person camera crew. And we went around and were interviewing people, and I saw all these topics that were being discussed. And I went, why are there not more parents here? And I've been on a crusade ever since then, because as parents, we don't feel like we're invited to these things. And that's part of why I wanted you to be on to talk about this, Amanda, because I know that the main goal here is that you're providing that continuing education piece for the BCBAs, which is really important. But I want to empower parents. Like, there's a whole lot going on in the field of ABA, and you're not shut out of it. If you go into these places, like, you welcome the parents, I know that you do, and other places do too. You can go and learn as much as you want to. And don't feel like you can't go to them unless you already have credentials. You just don't get the continuing education credit.
Right, that's really the only difference. Yeah, and I do want to say, the website, thank you, behaviorbabe.com too is my other landing space. And there's an entire section that's called Caregivers Corner, and it's got 15, 20 drop-down pages. And I even say on the homepage, don't be limited by the titles or the headings. It's just to orient you, because there's a lot of information. So teachers, please go read the parents or caregivers section. Caregivers, please jump over to the teachers or the students section. So I try to make as much information as freely available and as digestible. I mean, it is hard to sift through a ton of information and to know what to believe, help it synthesize. So I always provide the links and the references. Don't take my word for it. I'm only one expert, but
yeah. You are an expert, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to be on your site and learn from you, and in such a fun way. You're a fun person, and I love the whole Behavior Babe thing. So this is going to be wonderful on Friday. A decade of dissemination, a flashback, and a fast forward. And again, go to Dobe, DOBE-ABA.com, click on webinar. While I've got you, Dr. Kelly, I just, and you touched on this briefly, but I'm asking everybody, how are you personally doing during this whole pandemic?
Thank you so much for asking. It's a hard one to answer. I think, financially I'm doing okay, which is great. That takes anxiety and stress out of the picture. I am not doing my trips or travels, which was my anticipated 2020. So that was some reshifting and telling myself it's okay to feel sad about those things, although there is a bigger issue at play here. My family is healthy. I live alone, so it's been very strange to have this much time at my house. I am usually out and about. I am usually off island about half of the month, every month. And so I have an exercise bike and a projector screen, and I've been watching old movies and trying to do it out on the porch when it's nice out. So I'm making it, and I'm learning to cook. And I don't know if people know this, but home food tastes so delicious. So it's
Now, are you, I'm always interested how people are you able to get groceries delivered? Do you have to go far? Because are you in a populated place? You're a little bit out in no man's land, aren't you?
I'm in one of the more remote places on the island of Oahu, although it is the most populated island. My grocery store is only a couple miles up the road. It's the most expensive one. It's not where you want to buy most things. I'm very grateful. I actually have a friend who's her husband runs a food truck and they need to go buy in bulk. And so she was out and about. And when I came back from California, I self quarantined because of the time when I was there to what was going on here. And so I was really grateful that community came by. We don't really have delivery in these parts of anything actually pre-COVID. And now we have a few restaurants that have figured out how to do that. So that's actually been a new luxury during this time. And I don't know if they'll keep doing it, but we're staying fed. And I did get a care package. So this is just somebody who I met once in person, but through Behavior Babe, and they sent me toilet paper and they sent me like a face mask, and that was Leslie. Leslie, thank you so much. It was like, you know, it's nice to be known and to be called an expert, but it's really nice to get care packages of toilet paper. So
Wow. I mean, that's impressive because people are, you know, people are hoarding their toilet paper. So good for you. Plus, which too, you know, there have been a couple of times that I wanted to mail something to somebody and I'm like, oh, that's a whole thing. Like you got to go. And so there's been no mailing for anything. But I just find it fascinating because, you know, I think most people would think, oh, well, you're quarantined in Hawaii, like you're in paradise. This must be, but it's, you know, there are different things, different places and different challenges. But I'm glad that you're making it work and that it's happening okay. And I'm hoping that before too long, we're all going to be safely able to move about the cabin. But but thrilled that we had this opportunity. And I'm glad that you're figuring it out and that you're starting to do these webinars because I have a feeling you're going to be doing a lot more of these. So the webinar, this first one is on Friday, but as you said, if somebody registers for it, they can get the recording and watch it anytime they want in the next week. So you guys, it's DOBE hyphen or dash, whichever you prefer, ABA.com. And then you will have an opportunity and it'll be live on Friday. Yes.
it'll be live. So I'm taking questions as well. And if people cannot attend live but want those questions answered or addressed live, they can email or they can send it in when they register for the event.
Okay, so on Friday, it's at 6 p.m. Eastern time, which is 3 p.m. Pacific time, which is noon Hawaii time. I absolutely love it and we adore you. Dr. Kelly, thank you so much for all that you're doing and for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you, Shannon. Aloha.
Aloha, take care. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for watching Autism Live. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.